Welcome to The Explainer. If you're a focused learner gearing up for that big business ethics exam, you are in exactly the right place today. We're taking a really specific, highly structured look at a classic exam prompt. Basically, we're going to decode that super complex relationship between the promises a business makes and the actual reality it delivers. We are mapping out a high-scoring answer blueprint today, translating all that dense source material into clear, retainable concepts you can easily pull out on test day. Let's get right into it.
Here is the exact prompt we are tackling today. Explain the ethical responsibility involved in honoring promotional commitments and discuss the potential legal consequences for unethical promotion. Okay, let's dive into this. When you see a prompt like this staring back at you on an exam paper, you can't just write some general, fluffy essay about being honest. You need a highly structured, precise breakdown that hits every single piece of terminology the examiner is looking for.
Here's our game plan for today. First, decoding the prompt. Second, the fundamental ethical duty. Third, the 4 pillars of ethics. Fourth, the legal reality. And fifth, the ultimate cost.
All right, Section 1, Decoding the Prompt. Let's break down question 25.
A perfect, high-scoring exam answer always starts with realizing that a complex prompt like this is actually asking you to do 2 totally distinct things. It demands a clear separation. On one side, you have explain ethical responsibility. On the exact opposite side, discuss legal consequences. You absolutely have to address the moral obligations, the right and wrong of the situation, completely independently from the strict mandates of consumer protection laws. If you just sort of blur these 2 concepts together, you're going to lose points. You really have to demonstrate to the examiner that you understand the fundamental difference between what a business should do, ethically, and what it is physically compelled to do legally.
Moving to Section 2, the fundamental ethical duty, setting the baseline of trust.
So, this addresses the very first half of our exam question. Before we even breathe a word about laws or lawyers, we have to establish the absolute baseline of a retailer's ethical duty. And here is your core definition to memorize. The fundamental ethical duty is fulfilling the promises made through marketing and advertising efforts. But pay really close attention to the phrasing here, whether explicitly stated or implied. This is a massive point to include in your answer. A retailer doesn't just have to honor the big, bold print on a billboard. If their marketing strongly implies a certain level of service or a certain quality, they are ethically bound to that implied commitment as well. Because at the end of the day, consumers are relying heavily on those exact commitments when they decide to pull out their wallets.
Now, what's genuinely interesting about this is the super powerful language used in our source material. Failing to uphold these promises isn't just called a mistake. It's described as a betrayal of trust that can severely damage a retailer's reputation and integrity. You'll definitely want to drop this exact phrase, a betrayal of trust, straight into your exam. It gives the ethical duty real emotional weight, and it proves to the examiner that you grasp the absolute severity of the moral breach way before any legal action is even on the table. All right, Section 3, the 4 pillars of ethics. Time to apply these concepts. To really nail top marks, you can't just write retailers should be honest. Too vague, right? You need to break that broad ethical responsibility down into actionable, bite-sized categories using 4 highly memorizable pillars. Pillar 1 is delivering exactly what is promised. The physical products must genuinely actually meet the quality expectations and the features that were hyped up in the advertisements. You simply cannot market a 5-star luxury experience and then deliver a bargain bin reality.
Our source actually gives us a brilliant specific example to use here. If an item is promoted as being handmade with premium quality materials, the retailer is ethically bound to live up to that exact literal standard. It cannot be machine-made in a factory. It cannot be glued together with substandard materials. Throwing a highly specific example like this into your exam response really demonstrates a concrete, real-world understanding of the concept.
Which brings us to Pillar 2, pricing transparency. The absolute final amount a customer pays must accurately reflect the price that got them in the door. And remember, as an exam candidate, it is crucial to note that pricing is literally one of the most heavily scrutinized parts of any promotional commitment. It is ground zero for where consumer trust is most easily and most often broken.
To elaborate on that pricing transparency, our source specifically warns against a few huge pricing traps. No hidden fees, no undisclosed taxes, and absolutely no surprise extra charges. The ethical obligation here is that every single one of these has to be clearly and honestly disclosed before the purchase is finalized. If a customer clicks buy and the price suddenly jumps 20% because of a hidden service fee, well, the retailer has entirely failed Pillar 2. Moving right along to Pillar 3, fulfilling service promises. A lot of the time, promotional commitments aren't just about handing over a physical product. If a promotion includes accompanying services, think of things like a promise of complimentary installation or comprehensive warranty support, the retailer absolutely must deliver on those commitments promptly and professionally. The service is just as much a part of the product as the item itself.
And finally, we hit Pillar 4, looking beyond profit. Truly ethical retailers understand that their obligations extend well beyond simply protecting their quarterly profit margins. A promotional commitment is a serious, binding pledge to the consumer that has to be respected. Even if fulfilling that promise ends up costing the retailer money on a specific transaction, the ethical duty to honor that pledge completely overrides any short-term financial gain.
Time for Section 4, the legal reality, moving from the moral to the mandated.
Okay, tone shift. We have to address the second half of that exam prompt now. We're moving completely away from warm, principled ethics and stepping right into the serious, urgent reality of legal compliance. Think about this comparison. Ethical implications are all about protecting trust and a brand's reputation, but legal consequences, those are mandated by strict consumer protection laws in pretty much every jurisdiction. So the crucial point here is this: fulfilling promotional promises isn't just a nice thing to do anymore. It is legally required. The second a duty becomes a legal mandate, the stakes change entirely.
Our source outlines a few specific, highly unethical practices that expose retailers to massive legal risks. We're talking about deceptive advertising, making totally misleading product claims, or intentionally hiding fees. When a retailer crosses the line and starts engaging in these behaviors, they aren't just risking a bad Yelp review or losing consumer trust, they are actively breaking consumer rights laws and practically inviting federal investigations.
And what are the direct, tangible penalties for that? First up, lawsuits and incredibly costly legal battles. Retailers can face direct legal action from angry consumers or worse, from really powerful regulatory bodies. Second, heavy fines and sanctions. Authorities can and will impose massive financial penalties on companies that violate advertising laws. These are the concrete, highly damaging outcomes you absolutely must list out when the exam asks you to discuss legal consequences.
Which brings us to Section 5, the ultimate cost, your mic drop conclusion. We are in the home stretch here. To truly secure that top grade, you need a powerful, definitive summary statement, something that ties this entire blueprint together and shows the examiner you grasp the big picture. A truly perfect exam answer recognizes this fundamental truth. Failing to honor promotional commitments goes far, far beyond just financial penalties. Yes, lawsuits and massive fines are incredibly painful, but they are honestly only a fraction of the total cost to a retailer. A company can eventually write a check and pay off a fine, but they cannot easily buy back the other things they lose.
And here is the ultimate, final quote from our source material that you should absolutely use to wrap up your exam response. Unethical promotion causes long-lasting, irreparable damage to a brand's public image and consumer trust. That word right there, irreparable, is the golden ticket. It cements the concept that once that baseline of trust is completely destroyed, the brand itself may literally never recover.
Which leaves us with a pretty massive question for you to ponder as you head into your exam prep. When a promotional promise is ultimately broken, is the absolute heaviest cost paid in the courtroom, or is it paid in the minds of the consumers? By structuring your exam answer just like we did today, clearly, definitively separating those moral pillars from the harsh legal mandates, you are going to show the examiner exactly how those two worlds intersect. Best of luck with your studying, keep reviewing these core concepts, and we will catch you in the next explainer.